Welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, where feelings aren't felt and snowflakes melt. Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
They painted over ants.
Right. Well, speaking of non-politicians who act like politicians who disgust us, wait till I show you this last video.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're gonna love this. I know you know what this is about, but just watching the video, anyway, I'll let it speak for itself. And of course, those of you on the podcast side will talk about it as soon as we play this. Hold on just a second. Yep.
Since January of this year, more than 400 anti-LGBTQ plus laws have been introduced at the state level. That number is rising and demonstrates a trend that could be dangerous for service members, their families, and the readiness of the force as a whole. When I look at potential candidates, say for squadron command, I strive to match the right person to the right job. I consider their job performance and relevant experience first. However, I also look at their personal circumstances, and their family is also an important factor. If a good match for a job does not feel safe being themselves and performing at their highest potential at a given location, or if their family could be denied critical health care due to the laws in that state, I am compelled to consider a different candidate and perhaps less qualified.
The only funny part of that video was the last piece I spliced in. I am astonished. Every time I think I can't get any more surprised out of people in this administration, something pops up, and this is the most embarrassing I've ever had any senior leader that I can remember in recent memory. I mean, Millie is a piece of shit. This woman should have been relieved immediately after this speech. Immediately. Back in our day, I mean, no speech like that ever would have been spoken, but the commander-in-chief the phone would have been handed to her from the commander-in-chief saying, "You're relieved. Report." That was nuts. Russ, go ahead. I'm too pissed to even make a commentary about it.
First of all, I'm ashamed. Stuff like that makes me ashamed.
Please describe to our pod listeners what that was, by the way.
All right. That was the Air Force General for Space Force talking about how the Air Force should be full of transgenders, and she has to make decisions based on transgender care, and why some of the laws that are being passed to prevent people from, cutting off the cock and balls of children are bad things for some reason. I guess she's in favor of stopping puberty and mutilating kids. Her name is Deanna Burt. Just watching that made me feel somewhat ashamed that we ever wore a similar uniform. She was Air Force, obviously, and I'm Army, or was Army. But, first of all, I remember days when our generals didn't give political speeches like that.
Ever.
George Patton was almost one of the greatest combat commanders of all time, was almost relieved, and sent home from Europe during World War II for saying that the British and the Americans were going to rule the post-war world. And now we've got Air Force generals standing up there talking about, what she thinks about states passing laws that say that, maybe you shouldn't approach a child with a dick saw. Maybe you shouldn't pump them full of drugs that puts hair on the chest of teenage girls and makes them go bald. This is a contentious issue, regardless of what side of the fence you fall on. With the whole transgender movement, it is unseemly and it is unethical for a senior military leader to give a speech about it in public. If you want to air your views on that, you do it in private. You do it in a general's forum. You do it to a council of colonels. You do it behind closed doors to Congress, and give your readiness concerns, not your personal concerns about certain movements.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it. She basically took a position, and the reason she won't get relieved is because the Biden administration not only agrees with her, but they also know that if they do take any action against her, they'll get yelled at by a lot of people from their own side, and that's what they don't want. They don't want to get yelled at by people from their own side. And look, General Burt is not the only example of, woke senior leadership. It's been coming a long time. I mean, I know a few general officers. I know a couple of them that are fairly decent, but they're all 1 and 2 stars. Nobody above a 2-star level right now. Moreover, once you reach 1 star, you literally cannot advance without having some kind of benefactor who believes you share their views. I'm not trying to talk bad about him. I'm just going to use this as an example, but Colin Powell, when he was assistant division commander at Fort Carson, Colorado, got an OER, an officer evaluation report, that had he gotten it as a colonel or any rank below brigadier general, would have ended his career. It was a very poor evaluation report, but the generals above him knew him. They knew the guy who was rating him, thought the guy was a putz. So he escaped that, and they promoted him to bigger, better things. They said, hey, look, Powell, probably stuck his foot in his mouth. He pissed off, his commanding general, but we know Powell. Powell's a good guy, so they promoted him. And so, when you get to 1 star or above, that's how it works. It's folks having drinks at the officers club. It's shooting the shit with each other to determine who's the best fit, and it all comes down to, right now, do they share my political outlook? Not are they the best warfighters. The only 2 times in our history, maybe 3, that I can think of where we got rid of all the bullshit and finally got and put in the right military officers, the Civil War and World War II. Maybe during part of World War I, although our involvement didn't last long enough to really get there. And the Civil War, they went through, 2.5 years of stupid people?
Oh, God,
before
yeah.
they finally put Grant and Sherman in charge?
Yeah, it was rough.
I mean, World War World War II, they finally said, all right, we actually need to put competent people in charge because we faced existential threats. We don't face that today. For all our blustering about the Chinese, they're not going to cross the Pacific Ocean and invade California. I mean, fuck, the Californians are probably welcome with open arms for all I know. But, we don't face the existential threat we once did. So, look, the left plays a very long-term game. They have the long view on things, and they've infiltrated these institutions, including our military. It'll take 25 years to undo. It would take the right people it'll take playing the game the way the left did, getting the right people in the right spots, but keeping their mouths shut until they get there. And once they do, unleashing things. And that's how the left has managed it. Was they kind of bullied and rolled over people. They've kept their mouths shut on some of the more radical things. I mean, shit. During the Barack Obama administration, this general probably would have been relieved. That's just.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, well, and Barack Obama was outspoken against gay marriage and a lot of other things early in his presidency, too, by the way, folks. So was Joe Biden, by the way. That's a completely separate topic. Just to share some experience too, and just to go back to what she said, you're exactly right. But she even said something on a whole nother level. She basically said, if you're from Florida, for instance, a state that's passed these kind of laws, I'm not interested in you regardless of your qualifications. I'm going to pass over you and pick that person of intersectionality, sexiness over there, the gay, black, whatever. That's exactly what she's saying. I will discriminate against you based on where you're from because people pass laws that I don't agree with. The ridiculousness of those of you who have not served in the military and say the era that Russ and I did, I used to have, I was an Army officer during several presidential elections. I certainly had my thoughts and feelings about it. We were specifically briefed every year. We didn't need the briefing to not openly discuss the politics while we were at work or while we were in uniform, or even at social functions that weren't during work hours. Try to influence our soldiers in any way, purport, advertise, or any of that stuff. We were strictly it was verboten to speak about that stuff. To this point, I had a homemade bumper sticker that I made about Barack Obama during the first his first presidential run. It wasn't flattering. Okay, I'll just say it wasn't flattering about him. I made it, had it in the back of my Jeep. I would drive around in my off-duty hours with that. But when I would get to work, I would take it off the back of my Jeep and set it down on the floor, on the back of the floor. I forgot to do that one day. And Yeah, I got my ass chewed, and I deserve to get my ass chewed. I mean, it was a very mild ass chewing because my boss and I had a great relationship, and I just shoot, sorry, sir, I forgot, dumbass move. You don't do that again, Koop. You know, they're there, but you know, I got a mild ass chewing, reminded me don't be careless. And then after that, I'm like, I'm just gonna leave that at home. I mean, it's not even worth because that UCMJ, you could have UCMJ action taken against you. It is actually against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It can be anywhere from conduct unbecoming, and there is actually an article about participating in, embarrassing the command, endorsing political opponents, in political rallies during any type of. It's to the point. I remember this very specifically as a young officer taking a class on this. If you're on TV and somebody interviews you, but they recognize you as an Army officer, you can get in trouble for that, even if you're in, say you're at a political rally and somebody goes, "Hey, sir, what do you think about your candidate?" "Oh, he's the best, and that guy sucks." If you're recognized as being in the military, even though you don't say anything about it or associate, that's a violation of UCMJ. That's how deep it went. But this, and the video, I can see it down here on my screen. It's called Space CUNT. That's the name I have for it on my hard drive. She's
not
an idiot.
wrong.
How in the F is she getting away with this? Did they change UCMJ? Because I know there's no constitutional process for changing the UCMJ. What the fuck, Russ? How is this stuff being allowed? This political bullshit and these political agendas, and she could disguise it in it's like welfare and ready. Fuck you, it's readiness. It's anti-readiness. No.
Well, look, here's a couple of things. First of all, she does it because she can get away with it because the Biden administration will let her.
I know,
which
is
somewhat short,
unethical, and fucking makes her a bad person.
But it's somewhat short-sighted because a lot of these people, for some reason, seem to be of the opinion that the Republicans are never going to win again. Well, they thought that in 2016 as well. They thought Hillary was a shoo-in. I mean, the next Republican that gets in, they are almost definitely going to decimate the ranks of the GOs, at least at the 3-star level and above.
God, I hope so.
I mean, if I was the president, when they swore me in, within 24 hours of me being sworn in, this woman would be out. Dick Cheney, fired the Air Force Chief of Staff because he gave a press conference about how he thought air power would beat everything and we wouldn't need ground power. You serve at the pleasure of the president and from him through the Secretary of Defense at that rank. So if a Republican gets back in, especially if they get in 24, she's done. If they get in 24 or 28, 28's the outside latest. And the reason I say that is because since World War II, we've had exactly one 12-year period in which the party in power was elected 3 times in a row: 1980, 1984, and 1988. Ever since World War II, with that exception, it's been at most an 8-year run, and then the other party takes power. That's just the way it works in the country. Yep. When the party out of power that doesn't believe in this shit takes back over, she's done. Millie is done. A whole bunch of these folks. Now, some of this leads to one of those scenarios I pointed out in last week's show about the Civil War that I think is inevitable now. How do the GOs and everything react to being fired? Because we're not talking 1 or 2. This will be a mass firing. You're going to look at 30 to 40 GOs probably losing their jobs across the various military services. And it's going to be for stuff like this. I don't know if you remember that stupid fuckstick General Donahue, whatever the fuck his name was, trying to play grab ass with folks on Twitter and talking about how, trying to silence somebody who happened to be a former soldier but was not any longer and was messaging the dude's college. I mean, these people think that they are beyond things, and they're going to run into somebody who's going to say, "All right, enough, you're done. Thanks for your service. Get the fuck out."
Did you have time or even the inclination to do something like that when you were serving? Because I didn't. It wouldn't even occur to me to do something.
I mean, I would.
It fucking occurred to me to do something like that.
Yeah, did I read politics and stuff? Yes, of course I did.
Did I have
when I did comment
like you and Jimbo and everybody else in my career all along? Of course.
When I did comment on politics, I was very careful about. I commented on specific issues of policy, in small groups. Small groups of friends. I never went public with it. I certainly didn't mention those kinds of issues. And at her level, let's also remember, it's bad enough for a captain or a major to come out and do this kind of stuff. But at her level, she is essentially trying to influence policy. Some captain or major that says this kind of stuff, they're going to get reamed out, but they're going to get forgotten about in a couple of days by the media because they got no pull. This woman is a 3-star general. Okay, got to remember, we didn't have any 3-star generals until 1864. All right, they were all 2-star generals except for General Washington. Ulysses S. Grant was the first 3-star general we had since Washington, I believe. I have to go back and verify that. But to become a 3-star or a 4-star, you have to be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. And at that point, you've got pull, you've got influence. Mm-hmm. And for her to just talk about this, there are how many states that are passing anti-mutilation and anti-drugging laws? I know she says that they're anti-LGBTQ. First of all, the LGB part is also trying to say maybe we don't want this TQ part quite so much anymore.
Yeah.
It's a controversial issue. She should not be doing it in public. She should be ashamed of herself. Her family should be ashamed of her.
I was thinking that you're anti-kid and anti-children because you didn't let your lovely daughters put their hands on the burner on the stove when they wanted to, when they were like 7. You should allow them to do that.
I wouldn't validate their aversion to heat.
Anti-child. I just want you to know that. Anti-child.
Yeah, I would not validate their heat seeking. It just was just not in me.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Koop, the handsome and debonair one of the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. Not to mention I'm the only one that's an actual bastard. Google that shit. Don't, actually. Hey, I'm here to do a shameless plug for our merchandise. You can find us at twogrumpybastardsmerchandise.com. We got a whole bunch of new merchandise in. I think you'll like some of the new choices. There's some pro-Second Amendment. There's some anti-Washington State Governor stuff on there. I think you'll really appreciate it. New stuff coming all the time. I have 2 great designs in the works, so please, to support this podcast, that's one of the easiest ways to do it. We're also on Etsy. Yeah, I know, Etsy. You can find our products on eBay as well. Storm King Mercantile is the name of the store there that fronts us. And there's many, many other ways to support this podcast, of course. We have a Patreon page, same thing, Two Grumpy Bastards. We certainly would appreciate you following us on Instagram. Most of you probably know we have a Facebook page, Two Grumpy Bastards Podcast. We have a lot of fun over there, a lot of frivolity, a lot of memes, and a lot of hard-hitting news, believe it or not. A lot of great people in that group. Also, all of the social media outlets, including now on TikTok. You can find us there. And one of the things that I really wanted to tell you is if you have any feedback for Russ, especially because he kind of sucks, feel free to email us at twogrumpybastards@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us, or you can always leave us a comment or an IM on, or DM, I should say. See, I'm so savvy. I'm so savvy. On our Facebook page. So we really appreciate you listening or watching us over there on YouTube as well. And we hope you do both, because Russ is something to look at. I said something. I didn't say something really great to look at. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is your intrepid, amazing, and grateful host of the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, Koop. Remember, keep your focus and stay wokeless.
Oh my God. Hey, just real quick, because we're already at an hour, so a couple of late breaking things, just a couple of comments to get from you. I sent you, I texted you, I was watching some news channel, on a random news channel, and they talked about Adam Schiff actually did get successfully censored today. Censured, not censored, censured by the Congress today. I watched it, and it's exactly what you thought. I mean, the speaker was trying to get order and have him come into the galley where he's supposed to get read. And of course, all the Democrats are rallying around him and yelling at the speaker and creating a ruckus, which is so professional, which is what we want from our politicians, defending an absolute, one of the biggest fucking turd human beings that's ever stepped foot in Congress. And that's saying a lot. He is a horrible human being, and he's always the one on Twitter saying, I am defending democracy. You are anti-democracy in every single way possible, and you're just a shit human being. The fact that these other people were Adam, and trying to scream down the speaker, and I'm actually fairly impressed with the speaker, what he's been able to do with a lot of his
He's
stuff.
actually done a lot better than I thought he would do.
Me too. And I've garnered some respect for him, having like no opinion of him before. But I'm just like, come on, just say it. And he said exactly what I would have said. He goes, I've got all night. That's exactly how he handled it, and they finally shut up. He was being very patient, much more patient than I would have been. But good news, he did actually get censured.
Yeah, Adam Schiff is one of the biggest. First of all, the chanting and cheering for him would have been like Republicans chanting and cheering for George Santos.
That's a really
turd from
excellent.
Yeah, the turd from New York, who lied his way into Congress. That dude is radioactive in the Republican Party, but Adam Schiff gets hailed because he lied for 4+ years, about the Trump Russian collusion hoax. And it wasn't just that. Yeah, but it wasn't just that he was saying that this, we needs to be investigated as very serious charges. We need to find out if this is true. No, he was actually saying, hey, look, I'm on the Intel committee and we've seen things. I can't tell you because it's classified. And it turned out he had dick. All right. He didn't have a damn thing. He just sat there and made it up for political gain. It reminded me of that turd Harry Reid trying to say that Mitt Romney didn't pay his taxes. And then when asked about it later, his excuse when asked about it later was, well, Romney didn't win, did he? And that's what people hate about politicians, is the blatant, open lying just to gain power. What I've always said is the problem with power is it tends to attract the people who should never be near it.
Exactly.
And Schiff is one of those. He should be censured. To be fair, I think he should be probably thrown out of Congress for abusing his position. He won't be. I was concerned because the Republicans did not levy the fine against him, because 20 Republicans voted against that, I think, $16 million fine, I believe it was, they were going to levy on him.
Yep.
And while it's a nice Marquis of Queensberry rules way to approach it, I think it's a little bit delusional when Republicans are like, well, Democrat, if we do that, then it sets a precedent and Democrats will do it. Democrats are going to do it anyway. All right, next time they take Congress, how safe do you think, I don't have much love for this woman, but how safe do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is? Or Lauren Boebert or Matt Gaetz? I can think they're schmucks, but that doesn't mean, that's for the voters of the district to decide. And the Democrats are going to levy all kinds of shit on. I mean, they kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene off of congressional committees, and they acted all wounded when Republicans were like, okay, you've opened this can of worms, now we're going to kick 3 of y'all off.
Yeah, I mean, Ilhan Omar got kicked off. The fact is, she should have been completely impeached from Congress for her anti-Semitic and everything else.
Anti-Semitic bigot.
But she's allowed to. And here's the thing, folks. We can bitch all we want to about these things. You fucking people voted for these people. AOC got duly elected, so you get what you get.
Well, the term the phrase I've heard is, people get the government they deserve, and sometimes they deserve to get it good and hard.
Yep, this is true. Real quick too, not breaking news, but yesterday came down that Hunter Biden. Oh yeah, they really threw the book at him, didn't they? Oh my goodness. Pled guilty to a couple of misdemeanors. Woohoo! And then is getting diversion on a felony charge. I did see a tweet from when I was on Twitter earlier trolling Adam Schiff. A tweet from, I can't remember who had forwarded it. It was one of my guys, Dave Rubin or somebody, from a lawyer of a famous rapper. I'd never heard of the guy, but
I saw that.
You saw that? Who got a 3-year sentence for the exact same crime in federal prison.
Yep.
We know that favoritism is there. We know that's going to happen. It's almost inevitable with people in positions of power and them and theirs. But oh my God, had Donald Trump Jr. My goodness. I'm just curious what the Department of Justice would have handed to Donald Trump Jr. This is again where I have a lot of sympathy for Trump and his followers because stuff like this, bro.
Yeah, look, let's be fair. This happened very abruptly. They've been doing this investigation on Hunter Biden since 2018.
Right.
And then just as Donald Trump is indicted and people start saying, why is this investigation taking so long on Hunter Biden? Suddenly it gets resolved in like 48 fucking hours. It's amazing how that happens. And then
Russ
he got
said,
bad boy. Now I think one of the reasons they did this, because look, Hunter Biden is all about Hunter Biden. He's all about self-preservation. And rumor was one of the defenses he was going to use if he got brought up on gun charges, because it's a felony to possess a firearm while you're doing illicit drugs. He was going to use a Second Amendment defense that he hadn't been convicted of anything and therefore he had a right to firearms. And I'm not sure how well Daddy thought that would play with the rest of the Democratic base. He got a slap on the wrist, but others have gotten far more. This is so transparently a ploy to say, hey, look, yeah, we punished Hunter Biden too. No one's against the law. Okay, well, we're going to bring his ass up on charges for that bribery shit too. All right, because that's the only reason he got on any of this. And you probably know this, but you do know that dude served in the JAG Corps, right?
Hunter Biden?
Yes.
I did not know that. I know his
He
brother
got kicked out of the Army for using cocaine, I believe.
I didn't know he was in the JAG Corps, though. I mean, I know God bless his brother, died and
that was horrible, obviously.
KIA, and much, of course, literal compassion and sympathy for the Biden family for having gone through that. Didn't stop Hunter though from doinking his brother's wife later on down the road and all that kind of thing. Because he's a good dude. Yeah, I did not know he was in the JAG Corps. I did not.
I don't know if it was I'm looking real quick. He was in the Naval Reserves.
Not know that.
He was. Let's see.
Well, you said
I don't know what he did. I just says application for the U.S. Navy Reserves approved in May of 2013. The following month, tested positive for cocaine during a urinalysis and discharged administratively. Now, here's something interesting for those of y'all who don't know.
Talk about that either. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, look, for those of y'all who don't know, because I've run a few urinalysis programs in my time in the Army.
You think?
Cocaine is out of your system in 48 hours.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you do it on a 4-day weekend and they don't call an alert, which I had been known to do on occasion, if you take it on a Thursday or a Friday or a 4-day weekend, you're squeaky clean.
Yep.
By Tuesday, you're not going to get caught.
Absolutely.
So if you're caught on cocaine, it's because you were a dumbass.
I used to actually tongue in cheek tell soldiers, "Why the fuck are you smoking pot, you dumb fuck? If you did cocaine, I'd never know." I used to say that, tongue in cheek, of course, not advocating the use of cocaine, but no, we could not drill this one to death. I do want to talk about the delicious irony, though. I almost pulled up some videos of Joe Biden saying it, but they're so ubiquitous I don't need to. His pay your fair share, going after the rich people and the taxes, pay your fair share.
Yeah.
Pay your fair share. Well, his son is guilty of tax evasion, and by the way, going after gun owners. Those are two of his favorite things, other than supporting supposedly the LGBTQ whatever. Those are his two favorite fucking mantras there. And guess what? Your son just got convicted of. That is delicious irony. Delicious. That is like, oh my God, lap your fucking tears. Delicious.
Well, did you hear what Joe Biden said about? You see what Joe Biden said about guns recently?
I'm sure I did. He says a lot of things.
When he was decrying pistol braces.
What was it exactly? Do you have the quote?
Oh, let me get the exact quote here, because it's just so stupid it defies belief.
Yeah, I mean, I could do just videos of Joe Biden during our video rewind. I could just do him and Kamala the entire. Well, Kamala's kind of missing in action these days, I've noticed, but
that's because they know every time they put her on TV, her poll numbers go down even further.
How can you be worse than Joe Biden? That's just amazing. That's like being worse than fucking lima beans. I don't know how you do that.
Okay. I think I've got, okay. Here we go. Joe Biden, where is this? According to Joe Biden, if you put a pistol brace on it turns it into a deadlier gun and affects the caliber of the bullet.
Yeah, I did hear that. Now that you say that, yeah, there's so much stupidity.
I don't know how that travels up the gun to affect the caliber, because it's a stabilizing device so that your hands don't shake as much when you're shooting. But
one of my favorite videos, and I didn't want to play it because it just makes me feel bad. It literally makes me feel terrible to see it. Is what's the Pennsylvania freaking brain damaged dude?
Fetterman.
Yes, that wears like cargo shorts and hoodies on the floor.
Yeah, when he's introducing the president of the United States, he's in the fucking hoodie.
Oh my fucking god, that whole thing. You leftists are cruel, motherfucking disgusting people. I'm just gonna say that right now. To put either of those two people up, but to put them together up at the same time. I mean, there's like 3 neurons going in that entire fucking collective right there. Maybe on a good, if he took fucking fish oil that morning. What a disgusting display of just fucking. And you know what? I don't feel sorry for Fetterman. I'm sorry, but fuck off, resign, and his wife is in prison. I'm serious.
His wife is the real villain in this. Hey, before I forget, I do want to make sure I get Joe Biden's quote exact on this. Biden made it harder for people to buy stabilized braces. Put a pistol on a brace, it turns it into a gun. Makes it more. You can have higher caliber weapon, a higher caliber bullet coming out of that gun.
Well, he should be asking his kid about that. His kid seems to know something about weapons, so I don't know why he didn't.
I have
his Second Amendment.
I don't know how we ever elected. I mean, look, we can have arguments over the utility of the Second Amendment and whether or not you think, that should be a right. I happen to believe it is, but the problem is that so many on the anti-gun side have absolutely no idea what they're talking about when it comes to guns.
Right.
I mean, it makes it almost painful to debate them because they are so stupid. Thinking that a pistol brace increases the caliber. I cannot tell you the number of morons I've talked to who are like, "Oh, police should just shoot criminals in the legs," as if that's the way they're trained, and there aren't arteries in the legs that can get you to bleed out.
Like it's even possible to do. It's just
yeah. And then Fetterman,
a gunfight in their entire life, would say something stupid like that. That's
absolutely. And Fetterman, I mean, holy shit! Just at least put him in a suit, dress him up in a suit when you put him up at the podium.
What is that? Why is that okay now? Why is that? I don't give a fuck if he had a straw. I don't care.
Look, I have a horrible fashion sense. Anybody who knows me knows that. I dress terribly. Even I would not show up, to an event like that.
Right.
In a hoodie and cargo shorts.
Why is that okay now? Fuck me. I don't understand it at all. I look, you don't have handlers that can go, "Hey, fucking Frankenstein, come here. We need to put this Sears goddamn $300 suit on you. At least, it's going to hang off you and make you look even weirder, but at least show some respect for the fucking decorum of the office and the country." Oh my God. You remember the famous thing about Ronald Reagan, how he wouldn't take his jacket off when he was in the Oval Office because he didn't want to disrespect.
George W. Bush was the same way.
Right. They wouldn't disrespect the great men who sat in that office before them or the honor of sitting in it themselves. What happened to men like that? I don't know. We probably have one down there in Florida, but I'm just saying. This has become like the pro DeSantis podcast, and we need to get away from that a little bit. But I don't know.
Well, look. Fetterman is a perfect argument against early voting, because that's how we got in. Was all the early voting before the debate, and the Democrats were happy to do it. I will honestly be surprised if Fetterman goes much beyond the 2024 election. He should be in office until 2028. But since the Democrats now control the governorship in Pennsylvania, they don't have to be afraid if Fetterman resigns or something, because they can appoint a replacement. Now, they would have to have an election in 2 years as opposed to on the normal cycle. So maybe it'll go till, 2026 before he resigns.
It's just disgusting.
But they're not going to keep him in there long. They have him in there for a vote. He is an extra D to help them keep control of the Senate. That's all he is, and it's an embarrassment.
You know what this is? And this is going to sound terrible, but I don't care. This is like those videos you see on YouTube where they're playing a high school basketball game or football game, and everybody stops and lets the special needs kid on the court to shoot a basketball.
No, you're right.
Down. That's the way it is. I mean, that's seriously what this is. Our society's become that. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going after special needs kids and saying that, but that's you can't. Okay, it's one thing to do it at that level. It's a whole nother thing to allow that with these people who are voting for us. in representing
In
us.
theory, these are our rulers. But you know what? Now, in fairness,
Fuck
given
me,
the state
man.
of the country, maybe he does represent us as we are.
Maybe I'm not going to badmouth Pennsylvania because I got some friends there. I've never been there, and it's
My grandparents lived there.
America's birthplace, so it's someplace I really want to go. As much as any place is America's birthplace, of course. But maybe AOC represents her constituents because she won overwhelmingly in her election. So I mean, maybe that's what you got going on in his district. I don't know.
It's the whole state. He's a senator. He's the whole fucking state.
That's what I meant. His got going on in that state. Sorry. Anyway.